the famous match, WTBS, November 12th, 1988. It's probably the story you've told more than any other, but I have to know from the horse's mouth, as it were, why you and Ric Flair went out and he made you Ricky Steamboat for the day.
Yeah. Well, James, and I'll take you back to that time where the TV matches actually went a distance. There was actually time put in. And what a lot of fans don't realize is the dressing rooms were not together back then. In other words, all of us underneath guys would dress in one room. And of course, Rick, the top guys would dress. And we're talking TBS studios, Atlanta, Georgia. And the thing about Ric Flair, he was always so well dressed and just so well groomed. And one thing about early morning TBS tapings is Rick didn't like to work them because he always had a flight right after that, and he had to make a town that night. So you can imagine getting sweaty and all that morning, and then having to jump in on a plane and make the town. Well, Dusty would always kind of not really pull a rib on him, but just kind of stick it to him every now and then and say, Rick, you're working today. It was not Ric Flair's favorite thing to do. He loved doing the promos, and he was one of the few that could draw money by just talking. But that particular morning, I remember it just like it was yesterday. He told Rick, you're working today. And Rick just said, well, if I've got to, give me George South. And I didn't know any of this was going on. So 2 seconds before we go through the curtain, Rick looks over and he says, today, you're going to be Ricky Steamboat. Now, for me, who had just driven all night from Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta, 5 hours away, and of course the tapings were, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning in that cold studio. They kept those studios, James, so freezing because the cameras would shut down. So here it is, early in the morning. I'm getting ready to go through the curtain. I know that I'm wrestling Ric Flair. And then he tells me the only thing he said was, you're a Ricky Steamboat. And we went out there, James. And as you look back now, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just listening. And I don't think I have ever been so blowed up in my life. What was amazing is Jackie Crockett, the cameraman, he told us we were going to a commercial. So I'm thinking, good, finally Rick will calm down and he'll grab a hold and we'll go to the commercial. Well, buddy, we went to the commercial and he didn't stop. So even during the commercial breaks, Rick is going, and you would have thought that I thought I was going to win the NWA World Belt. It was just, JJ jumped up on the apron. I think I slammed Flair off the top rope, and we knocked the lights down, and you can see when the match was over, Teddy Long was one of the referees back then. They literally had to, and it's a proud moment, they had to drag me back to the dressing room. But you know what's amazing? Even today, James, I can go to shows and wrestling fans will come up and they still talk about that match. Now, I've wrestled him several other times, many times, but buddy, it's that one. Man, they can tell you the color of trunks I had on. They can tell you, what Ric Flair wore. And you think that was so many years ago, but to be a part of, these people's lives, all those years. And I came that close, James. I came that close to being NWA champ, but that was it. I think Flair just said, well, I'll show you, Dusty. And if you watch that match, I bet 95% of the match, I just beat Ric Flair up. I slammed him off the top. He was having me try to press slam. It was just amazing. And as I watch it now, Lord, I should have slowed down. Everybody said, why was I running so fast in that match? I was just afraid Rick would change his mind, and not let me do the move. So just that's one of my special times.
Can I ask you then? So the match goes through a commercial break. How long was the match actually? Because I think it's maybe only 8-9 minutes right. On video.
Right. It was all right at 14 minutes. And you think a TV match back then with an unknown, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. But they gave Flair time to work. And it was amazing because, and Black Bart was that way with me. For some reason, I was just very blessed. I would go out there with Black Bart, and those guys would let me. Dusty used to get so mad because I would just beat these guys up, and they trusted me. And then but they always believed, and Rick believed this, that if the fans thought this was a competition, if they thought this was a match, then they would really, tune in. And he was right. I mean, people still remember it all these years later.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick has sung your praises for decades, publicly and I'm sure privately as well. Were you ever close friends with Rick outside the ring, or was this purely a professional mutual appreciation sort of thing?
No, I love him. And on a personal side, when his mother passed away, I was able to go, when I was able and blessed to train his young son, Reed. His son Reed, when Reed first got into business. And I tell people jokingly that y'all don't know pressure till you're training Ric Flair's son and he walks in and he just comes to the ring, and you either got to know what you're doing as a trainer or Ric Flair is going to stop you. So for him to trust me, James, with his son, I have a picture, like a family portrait, back home in my museum. And at one night, it was just a special moment. I have Bobby Eaton's son, Dylan, Ricky Steamboat's son, and Ric Flair's son, all in the ring together. And that was an amazing night for those guys that I love and respect to give me their sons. So I tell you, one of the greatest compliments from Rick for me is years ago, we were on the same show and he was doing a signing right when he first started doing signings, James. And buddy, there were 800 people in line. And my son, my oldest son, had always loved Ric Flair. And I was at my table and my son said, Dad, I'm gonna get in line to meet Rick. And I said, well, son, if you'll just wait, I'll take you later. No, I'm gonna meet him now. So my son got in the back of that line, and James, what bless my heart is Rick, for some reason, saw Little George, as I call him, in the line, and he got up and walked and got my son, and he brought my son. I know those people were so mad, but he brought my son all the way to the front of that line, and he said, I'll sign anything for George South's son, but I'm charging everybody else. So we about started a riot, but just those little things. I'll always remember. Rick didn't have to do that, but here's a story nobody's ever heard, James, real quick. Years ago, Atlanta TV, I got knocked out on TV. Rick Steiner, it was an accident. Well, he said it was an accident, but he knocked me out cold. And so they bring me to the dressing room. They lay me on the floor, James, and I couldn't feel nothing. I mean, I didn't know what was wrong. And as I'm laying there, all I could see was Ric Flair walk by, and he reached down, James, and he put $50 in my hand. I mean, he did. He put $50 in my hand and kept walking. And he never asked for it back. He never said anything about it. But it was just so amazing to me that he cared, okay? And he didn't know if I would need it to get home on. I'm driving in from Charlotte, but I've never forgot that. I never let him forget that. He didn't have to do that. Everybody else just stepped over George, and let's get on with the next match. But he did. He reached down and he put $50 in my hand that if I needed it to get home. So little things like that early on in my career was stuff that I've never forgot. He didn't have to do that.